a podcast about amazing people from an incredible state. Amazing Arizonans with Mike Broomhead.
Another edition of Amazing Arizonans, and I really don't think we could do this without Jimmy Walker. Thank you for doing this, Mr. Walker.
Thank you for asking me, Jimmy. not Mr.
Okay, well,
Jimmy.
It's the first time we've met. I actually think I'm the first person in the United States you hadn't met. I mean, now you've officially met us all now after meeting me.
Well, I'm a flawed man, but I'm happy to be here.
Well, it's a lie. I wanted to say you and I have a friend in common because I think that's the most common phrase you use. Matter of fact, your book about everything's about relationships.
Correct.
For the people that aren't familiar, you're behind Celebrity Fight Night, Muhammad Ali, that relationship and what that turned into. Can we start there with how that happened? Because it tells so much, I think it tells so much of who you are.
Well, thank you. In 1997, back in the days, I was a small limited partner in the Phoenix Suns. I contacted Charles Barkley. I said, Charles, why don't we do a charity event? And the idea would be you put on big, oversized boxing gloves and fight Michael Carbajal in the ballroom at the Ritz-Carlton. We'll build a boxing ring. Charles says, I'm on, definitely. And then I called Marley. Dan was ready. So we did that. And in that first 3 years of, we called it Fight Night, Charles, of course, was boxing, big, oversized gloves. And Joe Montana was boxing against Mini-Me, Vern Troyer, and we had Evander Holyfield, Jake Plummer, Alice Cooper, Simeon Rice, and Phil Mickelson. And so we had quite a lineup. That's how it got started. And then one of my good friends and clients was Jerry Buss, who owned the Los Angeles Lakers. I was having dinner with Jerry one night, and he was having dinner with Muhammad Ali and Sammy Davis Jr. And he introduced me to Muhammad. I met Muhammad, and I had a hard time, Mike, getting a conversation going with Muhammad. He just looked at me, and I said, well, we have a mutual friend in Ernie Shavers. And he looked at me, and I said, Ernie really loved you a lot, Muhammad. Muhammad said, if he loved me so much, why'd he hit me so hard? And so we really hit it off, and I convinced he and Lonnie, his wife, to come to Phoenix. Let's start the Muhammad Ali Parkinson Center. I explained that with Charles Barkley, we have this fight night event going, a charity event. We could swing it over real quickly to you, Muhammad. And so we did it for 20 years before he passed.
The names that you give, and I've heard this from so many people, that it's not about name dropping for you, but it is truly about relationships. I sit here and I'm in the media. I get to talk to a lot of really well-known people. But for you to say, not only did I have Charles Barkley and Joe Montana, I got them to box, how do you develop a relationship with someone like that when you have an idea, they say, absolutely, I'm in?
Well, they don't always say I'm in. Sometimes you got to ask a couple times, But when I had Muhammad with me, I could call anyone and just say, hey, Muhammad would like to have you come to the charity event, or we'd like to honor you. And I mean, my name is nothing, but Muhammad Ali, I took Muhammad probably, Mike, to 20 Suns games, and I'd have seats on the wood. I'd walk in, and Muhammad, 17,000 people give him a standing ovation. And players on both teams would come up and want to shake his hand. Hey, just wanted to meet you, Muhammad. Or we'd walk out, he'd get another standing ovation. And no disrespect to Tiger or Michael Jordan. I had them sit with me once apiece, I remember, and people knew they were there, but they didn't stand up for those guys. But Muhammad Ali, I've always said this, just for the record, there'll never be another Muhammad Ali. They don't make him like him anymore.
The guy that used to cut my hair, the barber that cut my hair, also used to cut Ali's hair. And there's a picture inside, and he would tell stories of how nice he was and his family was. And it's the only time I could think about that. As a barber, it makes your life to say, I cut Muhammad Ali's hair. He had that kind of influence on everybody he ever came in contact with, didn't he?
Yeah, and on that word, one of the many, many quotes he had, the one I like the most, he said, the greatest religion in the world is the religion of love. And the man lived it. He always signed autographs, gives people a hug, loved children, loved widows, loved orphans, loved the homeless. I had him down at St. Vincent de Paul, where I have friends, Shannon and Steve Zabilski, and Muhammad would be down there and just walk around hugging people.
Did you ever go when he would train in Payson? Did you ever go when he would train in Payson? Because I had some friends that would fly him up there. I don't know if you know the Briggs. Roger and Janet Briggs used to fly him in their plane when he would train, and they had stories of him and had old pictures of him, and people cherish them. And I don't think it isn't because of the boxing career.
Right.
I think it's because of the man he was. It was, like you said, he lived that word love with everyone. He had such a quick wit from what I could see. I didn't know him like you did. Quick-witted and very funny, but somebody that just wanted love in the world.
Yeah, as far as the wit's concerned, I can't tell you how many times he was really working me over, a little trash talking, and that's Muhammad, though. I mean, sometimes we'd be going to, maybe in the early days, a press conference, and all of a sudden we're ready to meet the cameras and everything, and Muhammad's snoring. He's falling asleep, and he's just faking it out, and then he jumps at me, or he's in the back seat, he puts his finger in my ear or something, or when I would introduce him to people, he would say things to them that I couldn't even repeat on the air, but he could get away with it. That was Muhammad Ali.
I was just going to say that in an interview, it's been pretty well seen now with Ed Bradley,
right,
where he did the bit where he was falling asleep.
Oh, yeah.
And Ed Bradley was terrified that he had fallen asleep or something was wrong,
right,
and then made him giggle so much because he was faking it. That's just, does that tell who he is?
Well, yeah,
or was?
Like Muhammad Ali with Howard Cosell.
Oh.
He would put his arm around Howard. Next thing you know, his hand would be on his head, flipping the wig around, his toupee, and all that stuff. So, yeah, Muhammad was special.
Where does your heart for giving and charity come from? Because everything I've read about you, everyone that's talked about you, that I asked about you before we did this, everyone talks about your giving and that you are so focused on that. What is it that motivated you to that?
Well, first of all, a lot of people have overestimated me on that. There's a lot of people that do a lot more giving than I do, but I like the scripture in the Gospel, Luke 12:48, to much is given, much is expected. I mean, I've been blessed. I'm not even worthy how I've been blessed, but I've been given a lot, and I just like to give back. And, we all want to be happy, and I've always felt this: if you really want to be happy, find a way to make other people happy. And so, I love the homeless, and I carry these McDonald's cards. A little plug for McDonald's here. Sorry, Burger King. But when I see them on the street, I'll just say, hi, what's your first name? They give me their name. Nobody calls a homeless person by their first name. And I said, well, here's a gift card, $5 at McDonald's. And they always say, oh, thank you, I appreciate it, or something. I say, God bless, God loves you, or something. And so it's such an easy thing to do things for other people. And I do like to do charity work.
And I've told this story fairly often, one of my cousins, and he was like an older brother to me growing up in Ohio when I was a little boy, very close-knit, extended family, and he was the older brother I didn't have because I'm the oldest of my brothers. And he, through a bunch of bad decisions, ended up homeless in Las Vegas. And I would go and visit his sister, and we'd hang, and he would always come and find me, and we would be together, and all I saw in his face was my cousin. What the world saw was a homeless person.
Right.
And he ended up dying in a homeless camp in Vegas. And it's always been a reminder to me that when I see someone that is homeless, that there's a story and there's probably people in their family that love them very much.
Right.
And it motivated me to want to not just help, but let them know that I see them as a real person, that I see the humanity. Is that what's so important to you?
That's a great comment, Mike. And when I see a homeless person, I sometimes think that's somebody's son. That's somebody's daughter out there. And that's where they are today. I was very fortunate. We were talking about Steve Zabelski earlier and Shannon Clancy. They allowed me to have a program at St. Vincent de Paul. I called it Never Give Up. And for 12 years, I was able, before COVID, I did it for 12 years. Every morning at 7 a.m., I would be down there at breakfast, and I'd have a guest speaker. And the subject would be Never Give Up. I'd speak for 5 or 6 minutes, and then I'd have a speaker. It could be, well, like one time Reggie Jackson came down, and Reggie said, well, I struck out 1,642 times at the plate, but I didn't give up and quit, and I made it to the Hall of Fame. And he said, don't you give up, don't quit. And so, the very first speaker I had down there was Bob Lanier. I don't know if you remember
Of
him.
course.
Yeah, Bob came down and he spoke, and then had a lot of speakers. And it was never difficult to get someone to come speak. But yet, I think sometimes they don't know how to initiate a visit to communicate with homeless people. But when I asked them, I counted up one day, I had 468 speakers over a period of 12 years.
Wow.
And COVID kind of ended it. I still go down there. I was down there just last week, just hanging around.
Then you and I share a love for the work they do. What St. Vincent de Paul does in our community
Big
is
time,
incredible.
big time.
And we started something here called the Action Alliance. And after COVID, because I got here to this radio station 3 weeks before the shutdowns began to happen. So there was no community service. We weren't able to do things. And when COVID began to roll back, we started this Action Alliance, and it was just community service projects. And one of them was to take a group to feed a meal at the dining hall near Cass.
Right.
And you can see the people that have never done it before, because the excitement of cooking the meal and doing something good for other people, setting the tables up, putting the water on the tables. But when people begin to come in and you see what looks like an unending line of humanity that may have their only hot meal for the day,
right.
you can see the weight of that hit them.
Excuse me.
And the best part of the meal, at least for me, is to watch people sit at a table and have conversations and make a relationship with someone. And it's no longer somebody you see outside of your car window.
Right.
I love what St. Vincent de Paul does.
I had one morning at 6:30 or 7 a.m., 45-degree weather. I had Andrea Bocelli come down to sing to the homeless. He sang Ave Maria, and it was out on the basketball court. One of the things we did at Celebrity Fight Night, we built a basketball court for him and put him in 6 baskets. And so Andrea had performed a concert at the arena, and usually a singer like that, they can't fall asleep for a couple hours later, maybe 2, 3 in the morning. But I had Andrea, I picked him up at 6:30 in the morning. He was down there at 7 a.m. singing Ave Maria to the homeless. That's pretty cool.
Now, is it true that you met him by jumping on an elevator with him?
Is
that a true story?
Very true. You know a little bit about me. That's scary.
I've done some
that's
homework.
Scary. You still wanted me on to down here. And
because I want to know if all of this is true.
That's...
it's one thing for someone to say 1 or 2 names of people, but to say I brought Bocelli to sing to homeless people is a statement that most of us couldn't fathom.
But I even know Tricia Anthony.
Yeah.
On a first name basis.
Right.
Yeah. So look, lucky me. So, okay, the elevator.
Let me stop you for a minute.
Okay.
That's the key, I think, to that, is I would venture that you treat her just as much as you love her. Like you don't give the celebrities this celebrity status other than everybody's equal. Is that true?
Well, most of them are pretty empty, to tell you the truth. There's a real void in their life.
Yeah, Tricia, that wasn't much of a compliment, was it?
No. No, she deserves it. Okay, Andrea.
Yeah.
Here's where I was. We were at the Ritz-Carlton. This is, 10 years ago. My wife, Jerry Colangelo, and his wife, Joan, were in the lobby at the Ritz-Carlton.
Here in Arizona?
In New York.
New York.
And Jerry says, Andrea Bocelli's at the elevator. And I say, excuse me. I ran to the elevator because I had one thing in my mind. I got to get Andrea Bocelli to Phoenix at our Celebrity Fight Night event. Didn't know the guy. So I put my hand in the elevator. He looked at me. And I said, well, David Foster and I are friends. He does our music. Because, see, I knew David does his music. He looked at me, didn't say a word. I knew I had to come up with something better. So I said, I do this event with Muhammad Ali. And Andrea Bocelli said, do you know Muhammad Ali? And I said, well, yeah, we do this event together. Andrea Bocelli said, all my life I've wanted to meet him. He's my hero. And I said, well, you're coming to Phoenix next week for a charity event. And so would you like to go out to his house and meet him? And he said, I can meet Andrea Bocelli. And so Nancy and I, my wife, we pick up Andrea, his conductor, his fiancée then, Veronica, who's now his wife. And I set it up with Lonnie, so we go out to the house. We're walking up to the front door, and I told Andrea, oh, by the way, it's Muhammad's wife's birthday. So Lonnie opens the door. For starters, he sings happy birthday to her. And so we walk in. I'm leading a blind man to make an introduction to Muhammad Ali, who can't speak because of Parkinson's. That's kind of difficult, by the way, to make that kind of an introduction. So I get them together. Bocelli kisses Muhammad a couple times on the cheek, gets down on his knees, and he said, "Muhammad, all my life I've wanted to meet you. You're my hero." And Muhammad whispered to him, "Would you sing to me?" And he sang a song in the family room. And that's how it got started. And then the next night, we're at the arena where Bocelli's performing his concert, comes out with boxing gloves on, swinging him. He said, "My dream came true. I met Muhammad Ali." And we were in the front row. And after the show, he comes down and said, "Muhammad, I was so nervous singing in front of you." So, yeah, that's where we met in the elevator. So, you know.
That's it. We can end the podcast now. That's the greatest story I've ever heard.
Well, I mean, that's what happened. Colangelo did tell me this. Jerry said, "I never would have done what you did."
Yeah.
But Jerry's done a lot of things I wish I could do.
When you look at the events you've created, when you look at the things that you do and the people that you bring into them, why are they so willing to say yes to you?
Well, first of all, to get yeses, you get your share of no's.
Sure.
Yeah. So I get some of those. Yeah. I always thought, no, they needed more information, really. And so, well, the last event we did was on April 20th. It was at Arizona Biltmore. And Jerry helped me on that. So what I did, I invited 600 people from treatment centers, people that are fighting for their life, drugs and alcohol, as our guests, complimentary. And then I had 5 people that I know that are recovering, that are making the right steps to stay sober. And so we had that. And then at the conclusion afterwards in the program, I had David Foster and Catherine McPhee. David's 16-time Grammy winner. We've done events together, my gosh, 23 or 4. And Reba and I, we've done events for 15 years in a row. So Dave was there, did the entertainment. And the people from the treatment centers, Mike told me later, they've never seen anything like it. That they could come together and really get along with each other, not compete, but yet think about how can we help these people that are addicted to drugs and alcohol. Because between the ages of 12 and 43, the number one cause of death today is drugs and alcohol. So that was April 20th. And I'm going to do another one without David Foster, the entertainment, on April 2nd. And then, do you know who Rick Warren is?
Of course.
He wrote The Purpose-Driven Life.
Yeah, Purpose-Driven Life.
Yeah, Rick's going to come in and speak, putting together. My wife thought it was a little bit crazy to do 2 in 1 month, but we got a big thing coming up October 23rd. Rick's going to speak. And he did with Jerry and I about, now I have Jerry introduce him, Colangelo. We did that about 4 years ago, and Michael W. Smith sang. So it's fun.
Do you know who Mac Powell is? Mac Powell is the lead singer of the band Third Day.
Okay.
He's who introduced me to Michael W. Smith.
Oh, you know Michael.
So I just met him. I don't know him that well.
Yeah.
But,
great guy.
Yeah, so my favorite Christian band has been Third Day for over a decade. I just think they're an amazing band.
Yeah.
And I had the privilege of meeting Mac and becoming friends with Mac and being introduced in some of those circles and being able to see that people behind the scenes are exactly who they are on stage, that it's not an act, was so good for me to see the genuineness in people. And do you see that in most people?
Definitely. I think a lot of people are just misunderstood. I think we need to encourage one another. You know, among faith, hope, and love, the greatest gift is love. I mean, that changes everybody right there. People like to be encouraged, and they know if you're sincere or not.
But I think I would imagine when they reach a certain level of celebrity, that they're asked to do so much that out of scheduling alone, they have to say no, and they also have to be a little bit leery and suspicious because everybody wants something from them. How is it that you develop the relationships with people where they see your sincerity? Is it someone's word of mouth that said, no, this is somebody you need to talk to? How does it work for you to be able to do those things?
Well, like Billy Crystal, I met him at a Clippers game. We became just basketball fans, and I kept in touch. One thing I do, I write a lot of letters. I really keep in touch. George President Bush 41 did the same. Sam Walton did the same, and I knew both of them. Just letter writing, keeping in touch, and then you follow through. You go meet them and everything. But I've done a lot of that with, like the ball players. I had an office at the Ritz, right next to the Ritz-Carlton. Starbucks is next door. I knew all the valet guys. I always had a car for the franchise players that they would have it when they came to Phoenix.
Is this the Michael Jordan story?
Well, yeah, Michael is today my biggest sports client. I always had a car for Michael from his rookie season. Then when he played with the Scorpion, he won a Range Rover. And so I made that happen. And back to Charles Barkley, I remember I'd always have a car for Julius Erving. And then when he retired, I had one for Charles. And so Charles got a hold of Doc, and he said, "Doc, who's this Jimmy Walker?" He says, "This is kind of weird. He's got a car for me. What should I do?" Doc said, "Don't worry about Charles. He's my friend. Take the car and enjoy it, But I don't know. I just did that. It was kind of a natural thing. And I didn't always have him as a client. I mean, I didn't always ask him for a favor. Just made it happen. Just they enjoyed it, and so that's what I did.
How do you have the concept for these events? The cruises and the events for people that are suffering from addiction at the at the Biltmore. What is the concept? How do you come up with the concept?
Well, my wife and I have had 3 children, 2 daughters and my son Scott, on the addiction. Scott was 43, single, never married, no kids. Scott was not a quitter. Scott went to detox 27 times to try to stay sober. He went to 3 30-day treatment centers. My last visit was Scott. He was living in a sober living home. And he said, "Dad, this home I'm living in, they're not running it the right way. It's owned by businessmen. All they want to do is make money." Scott said, "I want to start a nonprofit sober living home to help other people." And I said, "Scott, your dad will help you." And sadly, 3 days later, Ben now took his life.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. There's
no greater pain for a parent than losing a child.
Watching my mom endure the loss of my brother showed me 2 things: what true pain is and what true courage is for her to walk through that.
Definitely.
And for you to talk about this. First of all, I didn't know the story. I appreciate you being willing to share it. It's got to be so difficult to even think about, never mind express.
Today, Nancy and I, my 2 daughters, Lori and Jennifer, we got 7 nonprofit sober living homes. And I'll be 80 this year. I'm spending about 70% of my time with our nonprofit sober living homes. Just want to follow through with what Scott wanted.
The success you see when there are people that truly get on the right path and get into recovery, what is that like to see success in someone else's life?
Well, it's like tomorrow night, every Wednesday night we have a speakers program at our sober living home. And Alice Cooper was one of our recent speakers. And Alice talked about all the cocaine he did in the 70s. And he said that there were more law firms in Beverly Hills that offered cocaine than didn't offer cocaine in the 70s. He talked about John Lennon. He talked about Elvis. Today, Alice is helping teenagers. He and Cheryl doing great work.
Amazing, that teen center. It's near where I live.
Yeah, he's
an amazing place.
He's one of my favorite guys. And
I was there when they opened the art center, in addition to the music, and for someone to have that kind of heart for people.
Yeah. Great golfer, too.
That's what I hear.
Well, if you golf 8 days a week, it helps, you know?
It does.
When I golfed with him, if I hit a short putt, what do you think he says? "Hit the ball, Alice." So no,
he called you Alice?
No, I said, if I hit a short putt, he would tell me, "Hit the ball, Alice."
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
When you, there's so many questions I have about I don't want to focus on the names of the people you've met, but you've been able to take and harness someone. I have a friend who works with Athletes in Action. I don't know if you're familiar with the organization.
Sure.
So my friend Dave Deal, I don't know if you know Dave.
Yeah, I know who he is.
Dave and I were roommates.
Oh, really?
Before he married his wife, Connie.
Okay.
And Dave was traveling to the Olympics, and he handled Asia for Athletes in Action. And it was his job, as you know, of the organization, to take professional athletes that are faith-based Christian athletes and use their notoriety to further the cause of Christ.
Right.
It seems like the same principle with you and people of being able to say to someone, you have more to give with your celebrity than just your talent on the basketball court. Do you express that to people, or do they just already know it and they want to do it?
Well, I don't know what they know, but we've had, like, at our house 16 outreach dinner parties where we had Christians come in and share their life. One example is Pete Maravich, and Paul Westphal introduced me to Pete, and Pete spoke at our house, and terrific guy. In fact, I got very close to Pete, and I was a pallbearer with Elgin Baylor in his funeral in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Pete was playing basketball at age 40 with James Dobson, founder of Focus on the Family, and had a heart attack and died.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, in the Birmingham newspaper at age 40. No, in the Birmingham newspaper, Pete said he'd probably die playing basketball at age 40. That's called prophecy, I'd say. He died of a heart attack at age 40 in a Nazarene church. And Pete, I told Isaiah and Magic that Pete Maravich they told me Pete Maravich created Showtime in the NBA. So, but, Pete's home with the Lord. And his son just died just 2 days ago.
Yeah, I saw that story.
Yeah.
I saw the story. When you are thinking ahead, like I'm sure in your mind, you've got events coming up, are you always thinking ahead of what else can we do? Where else can we do it?
Probably, unfortunately, that's true. I say that with a little bit of humor, but no, I enjoy it, but I want to repeat, there's a lot of people who do a lot more than I do. Mine's just seem to get extra exposure. And the only reason, like in my office, I got a lot of pictures of celebrities. I've got no pictures of celebrities at home. The only reason I got a lot of celebrity pictures in my office is because it helps us with our charity events to do something for a good cause. But it's got its place, and I know some of them, you don't have to be a celebrity to be empty and to be shallow and to be insecure. So it's not money. The love of money can be the root of all crazy things, but a lot of people can do a lot of wonderful things with money too, so.
But I think that most people, one of the things we try to do is give people the vehicle to do good, which is why we started that Action Alliance, because I think whether you are a famous person or you are someone that goes to work every day and no one knows your name outside of your family and friends, you want to do the right thing, but you want to make sure that it's going to the right place.
Right.
And do you find that with a celebrity that's always being asked for something? You would imagine, like, there's, the actions of Shaquille O'Neal are legendary, with him giving away money and helping people. But I would imagine being asked all the time would sour you a little bit on saying yes. But you give them a vehicle that they know is trustworthy and good, and it looks like they jump in with both feet because of that.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm around a lot of good examples, people like yourself, and like back to Shaq. I know I always had a car for Shaq. He's been a client, and Shaq, he always wanted to buy me something. He's doing the same thing. And I remember this one time we were at Biltmore, and he said, he insisted on buying me something. And I said, no, you don't have to. And he said, okay, I want to buy your wife something. And I said, well, we were near a shoe store, so he bought her a couple pair of shoes. But he said this, if I don't cooperate with him, he's going to put Jerome as bodyguard on me. So I said, okay, you can buy us something. But Shaq is one of those kind of guys that'll do that. Some people just are big givers.
In your business life, and you were in the insurance business.
Still am.
Still are. And parlaying that in, I think all of us, the idea of, let's say for my radio show, if I can get someone to listen, I'm halfway there. If I can get someone to tell you to listen as an advocate, then I've really accomplished something. Is that in your world where you've mentioned on and off a little bit, they were a client, they might not be a client, but you have transitioned with so many people into real deep relationships? That's got to be the biggest accomplishment, isn't it? That it's not using each other. There's a real relationship.
Yeah, right. Well, I I don't really want to be known as being a religious guy, but I'm not ashamed of the fact that I have a relationship with the Lord, and I think that is a good place to start. But I don't want to cram it down anybody's throat. And I think the best way, Pete Maravich used to always have this scripture. He said in Matthew 5:16, "Let your light shine before men in such a way they may see your good works, which will glorify your Father in heaven." In other words, Pete used to say, let them see it in your life, that you're real. And that starts with love, doesn't it? I mean, that you care about somebody and there's no motive involved and something like that. And I think that's good. It's going to attract us to the Lord more than rattling off a bunch of scriptures or I'm a deacon in a church. And I mean, I got friends that are atheists and agnostic, and some of those people, Mike, I can trust them more in a business deal than some people that try to act religious.
Sure.
It comes down to a person's integrity and their character.
When you talk about the words love, and it's interesting, I taught at a church for about 10 years, adult Bible study, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me in studying, because it's a different kind of studying. There's self-edification in study, but there's also, if you know you're going to be talking to other people, you really have to know the subject matter and dig deeper, and I did. And in John chapter 13, love one another. A new command I give you, love one another.
Right.
As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, all men will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. It was this expression of how we treat each other. And that the world was going to look at those disciples when Jesus was gone, and they were going to see Christ, not in what they did, but how they treated each other.
Right.
I thought that was an amazing message at that time.
And Bocelli, the thing that's remarkable, not only maybe he has the greatest voice in the world, he's got 5 schools in Haiti, and he really loves the Lord. And in Italy, the 2 big names are Bocelli and the Pope. And I remember we did an event in the Colosseum in Rome, and it was right before COVID, and we had really good entertainment that night for our Celebrity Fight Night event. We had Andrea Bocelli was singing, Elton John and Steven Tyler. And
in the Colosseum.
Yeah, in the Colosseum. And you've been in there before?
Yes, I have.
And it's pretty hard to put seats that are comfortable. Yeah. You're sitting on stones and so much history and stuff. And you're thinking of the gladiators and all the fights that were taking place and bloodshed. And you got Andrea and Elton John and Steven Tyler. That night we honored Sophia Loren. And yeah, it was a wonderful night. But Andrea has so much love for people.
Were you amazed in Rome, just a sidebar, of being in this big modern city, and all of a sudden, right in the middle of town is the Colosseum?
Yeah, really.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it really is, yeah. And, Steven Tyler, and he's recovering. And I remember I was at a David Foster event, and he asked me to give the invocation, about 1,500 people. And Steven Tyler was entertaining that night. And I saw Steven over there with the hair and the tattoos and everything, and I started thinking, geez, Steven Tyler, he's probably not going to be very interested in this prayer I'm going to give. So I gave the prayer before dinner, and I walked off to my table. Steven comes up to me. He said, Jimmy, I needed that prayer. Thank you very much. And, again, people, and by the way, I think the famous Christian sport's judging other people. We never have enough information, and we're not worthy. Yeah. But there I judged Steven. I thought ahead of time, he doesn't want to hear this prayer. First guy to come up with Steven Tyler.
So can I ask you, I hope it's not too personal of a question, let's talk about the beginning of your faith. Where did it begin for you, your foundation?
Well, actually at Young Life Camp. I was probably 15 going to Central High, and I heard about this Young Life Camp that they had basketball courts and good-looking girls up there. So I said, I'm in. So I go up there at age 15 to play basketball and check out some girls, I suppose. And I received Christ at that Young Life Camp. And I came back, and I was, high school. Then I go to college. And my goal in high school was to be a pro basketball player. I think I did play basketball at Arizona State. But don't Google my basketball success, Mike. But I
didn't, but now I wish I had.
No, I think I may have majored in basketball, minored in girls in college. I was an SAE. A big thing was to get a sun, the sun tan, and I had a Corvette. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I kind of thought it was my world and everybody's living in it. I used to go to the Red Dog discotheque a lot. I met my wife at this discotheque, by the way.
The Red Dog.
Yeah, I was 21. She was 19. And I walked in there. I was very humble. I came in and sat at the bar, had a pitcher of beer, and I see this girl over there, and I looked at her and I said, she was so good looking. I would have married her that night if she couldn't even speak English or had no brains, just on her looks, I'd have married her. But she had a date, so I was already a little jealous. So I thought sooner or later, Mike, she's gonna have that guy's gonna go to the restroom, and that's the only chance I get. I gotta come in. So I went up to her, introduced myself. I was very humble. I said I play basketball at Arizona State. My Corvette's outside. I'm an SA. We got a boondocker tomorrow night. How about if we go together? And she looked at me. She says, well, I've got a date tomorrow night. And I remember what I said. I said, that's okay. We can get your date a date and we can double. And that didn't go over too good. I married her within a year. Yeah.
You are the best salesman
No,
on this
no,
planet.
I'm not.
But you are the best salesman.
No.
Talk about closing the deal.
No. I've been married 56 years. I'm a lucky man.
So what year was that?
Well, 66, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, got married in 67. Yeah.
See, that makes me feel good because 67 was the year I was born.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel much better now about this conversation.
Well, you know, when I was younger, truthfully, and Tricia knows me pretty well, when I was younger, I would sneak out of the house to go to parties. But now that I'm older, I sneak out of parties to go home.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I'm exactly the same way.
There you go.
I can't wait to get out.
Right.
There's so many questions I could ask you about things, but your faith, how it's manifested itself in your life, I don't know, only because I've been through it. We talk about being faithful, that we have faith. We believe. Well, we believe, but I don't know that we rely on our faith until it's put upon us.
Right.
When I watched my brother, my brother passed away, and I watched my mom, and I was the officiant at his funeral and speaking on his behalf.
That's different.
There literally were times, and it wasn't a formal prayer, but literally in my head thinking, I have no idea what I'm going to say. God, you're going to have to get me through this.
Right.
And speaking words that even I don't remember, but it was successful. That gave me something that I've never had before, which was real faith.
Right.
Did you find that happened to you?
Definitely. I think the mistakes, the failures, adversity can draw us closer to the Lord. And to kind of follow up on the question you asked, after college, we got married, and after about a year and a half, in the second year, we lost a child. We had a little girl, hydrocephalic, and my wife got depressed. She was in the hospital for about 6 weeks. And some girls visited her, and they asked her to go to a Bible study, and she went. And I didn't want to go to a Bible study. I went to church. But I did see the changes in her life, and that was great. And so I finally went to a Bible study. At that time, I owned the Phoenix Rackets and World Team Tennis, and Reggie Jackson bought the team with me, and I took it over and signed Chris Evert. She's #1 in the world. That's where I met Jerry Buss. He was in the league, and Bob Kraft, who later the Patriots and the Lakers. And so the first Bible study I went to, I got out of my car. It took me 30 minutes to go about 30 feet to open that front door because I thought everybody in there was using this as a crutch, a cop-out, an excuse. I didn't want anything phony. I was probably phony enough in some ways already. But Larry Wright was the leader in that group. And Larry, he said the following. He said to me after the study, he said, whether you want to come back, that's up to you. But give it 6 weeks. See if it works. The thing I did notice in that Bible study, I saw people that were really honest. I couldn't believe how much personal things they were sharing with one another because I kind of covered things up in my own life. And that really attracted me, so I kept coming back. Long story short, I asked Larry if he'd lead a Bible study in our house, and he did. And after 1 year, or after 6 months, he wanted to move to another Bible study, and he said, we need a volunteer, and I raised my hand. And I've been leading Bible study ever since. I'm still not qualified, but yeah, if you can't help but grow if you step out in faith.
But none of us, I don't think any of us ever feel qualified.
No, I'm not.
Do you think?
No,
I started attending a church. I moved to Arizona. Of all things, I wanted to be a rodeo cowboy.
That's great.
So I moved here to learn to be a bull rider.
Reba would like you, by the way.
Well, I'd love to meet her.
Yeah.
In that process, I found a church and walked in with an attitude. I was raised Catholic, and this was a Baptist church. And I walked in with a friend, and I thought to myself, if any of them give me this fire and brimstone stuff, they're getting an obscene gesture,
Yeah.
and I'm out.
You're out of there.
And within a year, I was in a singles group. Within a year, I don't know if you've ever done the spiritual gift inventory, kind of a test they give you. The pastor over that program said, when you get back from your vacation, I was going home to Florida for a week. When you get back, you're going to teach on a Sunday morning. I said, I'm not teaching anybody anything. He said, when you get back,
I like it.
you're teaching.
That's good.
And I spent 10 years doing it. And
Yeah.
I loved it so much because I still feel like I'm the least worthy person to be there.
Yeah.
But to look in someone's face and make a connection in faith is a feeling I don't think I can ever replicate. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. No, that's great. It's true. That's absolutely on target. That's
When you look at what you're going to do, have you ever worried, I know this is going to sound like a very selfish question, but have you ever thought, I'll never top this?
What do you mean top what?
I'll never, whatever this event was I put on, I'll never do one better than that. I'll never do anything bigger than that. Has that ever entered your mind?
Well, sure, but I mean, yeah, I always have kind of a fear. Maybe nobody's going to show up or something.
Yeah.
But, why worry when you can pray? And I just think being really organized and prepared is so important. Preparation is the key to so many things. And I think that there's always challenges, but I remember when we were in Rome in the Colosseum, there were, Veronica Bocelli said a bunch of Italians kind of raided the show, and they started coming in and taking our seats, people from America that had paid a lot of money. And those are challenges you have.
Yeah.
You got to deal with them spontaneously, but you got to. But I think the key is, where I am in my life, because I'm a weak man, I can be selfish, I can be egotistical. I got to start the day in prayer. I got to start the day in the Bible. I got to get right with Him early, because I can make a mess out of a lot of things.
See, that's such wisdom, because here's the difference. See, you say, why worry when you can pray? I've always lived by the adage, when all else fails, then you pray. You try to fix it yourself, and I try not to be that way, but I think that's, for a lot of us, we want to fix it, whatever it is,
Right.
the issue, we'll take care of it.
Right.
And when we're at that last moment, then it's when we reach out, and I think you're right. That's the place where you should have started. Should have started there.
Yeah.
When I was first starting out, and our friend in common, Gordon James, and his wife, Lisa.
Right.
Gordon was a guest here and told some amazing stories.
He knows a lot of people.
He
Gordon
knows a lot
James.
of people.
A lot
Well,
of
he's
President Bush and
yeah.
on down.
Well,
so
I've
many.
known him for 20-something years, or 20 years, and he was sitting in that chair, and he just said to me in the middle of the podcast, did I tell you about the time I met Vladimir Putin?
Yeah.
And these are the stories I love.
But he's interesting.
When I first started getting involved in speaking out, I was asked to volunteer for Bush 43, and I did. And I was asked to be the master of ceremonies the night of his final rally after the debate at ASU against John Kerry.
Yeah.
And there were about over 30,000 people. Then it was Bank One Ballpark. And it was an amazing event, and I was the master of ceremonies.
Interesting.
And Lisa had asked me to do that. And I remember going home. I was married at the time, and my wife didn't attend. And I remember telling her this was an incredible night. And I know she didn't mean this as a negative, but she said to me, you're never going to top that.
That's neat. Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, what if that's true? What if this is the best I ever do?
Right.
And not for me, it wasn't a selfish thing. It was, I really hope that this isn't the best I have to offer. That there's other things, maybe not in front of 30,000 people, but there'd be other things.
Right.
Do you ever worry that you're going to run out of things to offer?
No, never. And, politically, everything's a big mess today, the world. And I sometimes say I'm not for the left wing or the right wing. I'm for the whole bird. I'm for America. But we did 15 years ago.
I'm stealing that, by the way. I'm not for the left wing or the right wing. I'm for the whole bird. I'm stealing that.
Well, I probably stole it from somebody
Okay,
else. So what's the
right.
difference?
Okay.
And so it was probably 15 years ago, and this is not political, but long before Donald Trump was going to be considered to be the president, I'd sent Donald a Bible. I think it was 1998. He wrote me back, thanked me for the Bible. And not much happened after that. And then I called Billy Crystal once, and I saw them both at a Yankee game. I was there for the Diamondback World Series, and they went up to Steinbrenner Suite. So I got a hold of Billy, and I said, well, maybe we ought to invite, this is when he had The Apprentice.
Yeah.
I said, maybe we ought to invite Donald to Celebrity Fight Night. You know, celebrities raise money for our charity, and we give it to good causes. Billy said, great idea. So Billy calls Donald, and Donald had a lot of questions. He says, absolutely, love to be honored by Muhammad Ali. So Billy calls me and says, Donald's got some questions. So he gives me his cell phone. So I called Donald, and the first question, first of all, Donald said, I love Muhammad Ali. Tell me about this Celebrity Fight Night, blah, blah. But the first question he really asked was, he said, do you have good-looking girls at this charity event? And I said, Donald, great question. Yes, we do. You're going to be sitting next to one. Her name's Nancy. It's my wife. And the true story, I didn't know what else to say.
Yeah.
And he worked the room with a camera and for our guests. And Billy introduced him, roasted him, Trump toilet paper, Trump paper clips, Trump glue, Trump airplanes, Trump this and that. And then we did auction off a dinner that night with him at Jean George in New York. Went for $350,000 for our charity, which was nice. So not to be political, but
what year was that?
That was, I don't know, 14 or 15 years ago at Celebrity Fight Night. Long before, he became president. So we need to pray for our leaders, whoever's in office.
Yeah.
Just pray for them. I pray for that side, and I pray for this side, and,
When you look at the things that you do on a daily basis, I look at St. Vincent de Paul. I have a really great relationship with St. Mary's Food Bank and the work that they do in town. And I think these are people that probably will never be appropriately recognized for their work. And yet here I am, someone that gets to talk on the radio every day and go down there when I want to go down there. But these are people that have dedicated their lives.
Great people.
Amazing.
They've helped us a lot. We in 1983, I just talked to the kids and said, hey, we got to start doing stuff for other people. So we thought, let's have a bicycle party. So we invited some people from the inner city down. We had 50 people come over to our house. I'll never forget that first bicycle party because it seems like they all had to go to the bathroom at the same time. And they come into the kitchen and they go into the toilet and it overflows. And Nancy's looking at me, what are we doing, And I said, we'll get a porta-john next year. But what we've done now with our friends, not just us, but we've organized it. We've done 40 bicycle parties. We've given away 10,000 bicycles. And we do it at St. Vincent de Paul now. We outgrew our house. We used to do them at a church, and we outgrew that, so we're at St. Vincent de Paul. And these kids love it, I mean, they don't expect a bicycle, brand new one at Christmas. But back to St. Mary's Food Bank, that's what made me think of it, because they give us the turkey. So we give a food basket. Thank you, St. Mary's Food Bank. So that's what made me think of the bicycle party.
One of the things I specifically talked to Shannon from St. Vincent de Paul about when she was here was how amazed I was at the enormity of what they do and the way they fill needs. And I asked her, one of the things I brought up was the bicycles.
Oh, really?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Well, I should have now. I guess I should have known that was your concept.
Yeah, everybody gets credit
but still,
for it.
The idea that, and what they do in filling needs for people in transportation for adults, but also what they do for kids, and the happiness and relief that you can give someone simply with a bike.
Oh, big time. Yeah. Muhammad came to a lot of the bicycle parties. Yeah. He had his first bicycle was stolen. And that's where the story is I think he got in a fight then. So, I mean, why not? Somebody steal your bicycle. He was Cassius Clay then. But he came to the bicycle parties a lot. He'd get the kids, put them on his lap and kiss them and hug them and stuff.
When you think about legacy, do you think about legacy?
I don't really think I'm worthy of a legacy. Just, hey, Well, you know the scripture, "Well done, good and faithful servant." I would like that. You know.
So is that, and honestly, I don't mean, I'm not asking you to be
No.
egotistical, but do you think about how you would like to be remembered?
I can only think about things I should have done better, really. But the mistakes I made, the failures, whatever setbacks, is I think where I've grown, and hopefully it makes you a better person. So I don't think I'm deserving of a legacy. Jerry Colangelo, people like that. But you know, it's kind of like, gosh, you go back to St. Vincent de Paul, you see some of these volunteers down there. They don't get any credit. I mean, I get credit. They put me on TV. They do.
Yeah.
I quit having TB come to our bicycle party. They said, well, it's good to show other people an example. Yeah, but I don't. It looks like it's drawing attention to me. And I do enough things to probably draw attention. And yeah, you enjoy it for a while. But I mean, that's not what it's about.
Every time I've ever had the opportunity to, and I bring the cameras when I go and talk with St. Vincent de Paul, I always say that Shannon Clancy is quite possibly the kindest human being I know.
She's right there.
That when I'm around her,
yeah,
it makes me want to be a better person because of the great work they do. Just giving their lives for that work.
You know Jerry Castro down there?
No, I don't.
He's another one. We one thing we started,
and I might, but I don't recognize.
Yeah,
the
you'd
name.
see, if you saw him, you might. But I mean, I'd bring Fitzgerald and those guys down. They loved it. But on Muhammad Ali's birthday, January 17th, 4 years ago, started this program called. I got the 4 best chefs, I think, in Phoenix. I got Vincent. I got Mark Tarbell. I got Chris Bianco.
Oh.
And Mark Lupino, who heads up the head chef at Steak 44 in Mastro's. And every year they cook steaks for the homeless at St. Vincent de Paul on Muhammad Ali's birthday, January 17th. And they cut up the steak in very small pieces. Do you know why they cut them in small pieces? Because a lot of the homeless don't have teeth.
Yeah.
But I call these guys ahead of time. They're waiting for my call. They want to come back. And this year I had Mark Candelaria come down. Mark's quite an interesting guy, and he loves to cook. And so, you know, when you ask people to do something like that, I don't think people are being asked enough to do things like that because they really want to do it. I never had a problem getting anybody to speak at in fact, we have a Wednesday night program at our sober living home. I'd love to have you speak sometime to the guys.
You say the word. I would do anything you ask me to do.
Well, that would be good for the guys that are coming. We got about 15, 16 men that are recovering, and because you've got an area where you can really encourage them and so forth. But
we were at a holiday. I can't remember if it was Christmas or Thanksgiving. One of the times we went to St. Vincent de Paul, and Larry came, Fitzgerald, with a group.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to watch everybody in his group jumped in and worked. It wasn't just a photo op. No, of course, Larry was taking pictures, but to see everybody that was with him put on the gloves and get to work.
Yeah.
But I think it's life-changing for people. You go into a situation thinking, I'm going to go feed people or I'm going to go do something good for people. And by the time you leave there, you absolutely know that you've gotten more out of that than you ever gave anyone.
Absolutely, for sure.
It's transformative, isn't it?
Yeah. I had Rob Watton down there.
Really?
The chairman of Walmart.
Yeah.
And he came down. I had Dwayne Wade down, had, I don't know, they weren't celebrities necessarily, different types of people, but everybody's got a story. And I remember when I first went down there, I had a guy say to me, he went to shake my hand, and I wasn't too willing to shake his hand because he's really dirty. And he told me, he says, you don't want to shake my hand, do you? I said, oh, yes, I do. And I went to it, and he left me. And I got in my car and I drove to my office, and I realized at that time my heart was dirtier than his hand. Mm. I just didn't have the experience of working in that environment.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys come down. I've had attorneys come down, trial attorneys, and they tell me they couldn't sleep the night before. They were so nervous to speak in front of those people. A trial attorney, you know, and so it kind of comes a habit.
What's next? Before we finish, what you told us you have an event coming up in October, but
Two events.
Two events.
Yeah.
What's next for you? What are you thinking about?
Well, tomorrow night we got our speakers program for not the homeless, the guys, men and women that are in their addiction. No, I don't know. I just I get up early in the morning and just start the day. My wife never wants me to tell people what time I get up.
Why?
It's ridiculous.
What time you get up?
2:30.
Oh, I was going to guess 4:30. 2:30.
Yeah. There's no interruptions. It's the best part of the day. So I get up, read the Bible, pray, get into my work, then I get in the treadmill. This morning, that's what I did. I got in the treadmill, then I swam some laps in the swimming pool, went to the office. By the way, I take usually 2 power naps a day. I take in the morning, like I took a 15-minute power. When I start yawning, I said it's time to. And the girls in my office, they know where I'm going, but we don't talk about it. I just disappear. I get in my car, move the seat back, and I fall asleep in a few minutes. And it really gives me new energy. And I do it about twice a day. But I go to bed at 8 o'clock at night most of the time, 90% of the time, not always. But
well, how do you keep up with the sports?
Well, first of all, I don't go to as many games as I used to. I've gone to so many games, and I don't have to go. I watch them on TV. Tomorrow night, okay, I got this thing. It'll end about 7:30. They got Dallas is playing Celtics, big game. I'm upset they're playing Wednesday night, but I'm not going to change the program I have for our guys recovering. We call it Scott's Place. So what I'll do at 7:15, there's a hamburger place, gourmet place around the corner. After it's over, I'll go over there and watch the last quarter of the game. So I kind of program that out, but I like the games. I'm a big Caitlin Clark fan, by the way.
Are you?
I love the girl.
Yeah.
Love her. I think she's being abused.
Yeah, but I think she's going to be better for it.
Yeah, but you know what? I think this is an opportunity for women's sports, women's basketball. I think she should be in the Olympic team. She can make the other women more money. She'll make them more famous. I think she's handling it really well. But when Kobe broke into the league and Magic, they didn't break in superstars.
No.
It takes a while. So she's going through a learning process.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I'm watching all of her games.
I had an opportunity, my first time, and you mentioned going to the World Series and watching the Diamondbacks win.
Yeah.
I have a friend who was gracious enough to take me to the World Series. I don't know if you're familiar. Do you know George Weiss?
The name.
Okay, so
Yeah.
George.
Yeah, I do know him.
Yeah.
But
So George took me to a World Series game.
yeah.
And it was an experience. I'm an experienced person. That a memory like that, I'll take that with me forever. I just love those experiences where you're witnessing greatness. It's not about saying it's the World Series, but you're watching the best in the world play.
Absolutely.
That atmosphere
Yeah.
of electricity is hard to duplicate anywhere,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, like watch Michael Jordan playing his prime or something.
Yeah.
Well, back to the World Series, I took the 7th game when Luis Gonzalez hit that game-winning hit.
Blistering line drive.
Yeah, really, a lot of power. I had seats on the dugout. I had Phil Mickelson and Steve Loy, his agent, as my guest. And the best part of the story was either the next day or the following day, Phil's in my reception office, and the girl at the front desk says, Phil Mickelson's here. And I didn't, why is Phil in my office? He had Callaway clubs on his right shoulder for me, Callaway clubs on his left shoulder for Nancy. He said, I want to thank you. That was the most amazing baseball game and being your guest and stuff. And so Phil, and I asked Phil, Make-A-Wish Foundation once, I asked him if he would do me a favor, and this kid had cancer, a 7-year-old boy, and he wanted to hit with Phil in the driving range. And Phil said, absolutely. So Phil went not only in the driving range, but he let him watch him play 18 holes of golf and then bought him lunch.
Wow.
So I know he's had a bad rap with the LIV, but there's good in everybody,
Yeah, Mr. Colangelo's story about that hit, the game-winning hit with Jay Bell on third base.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard him tell it, where it was tunnel vision and it was all slow motion, and at the end it just exploded. And when he told the story, he said that, and I went into the locker room and I told that story to the team, and one of the guys, I don't remember who he said it was, one of the players raised their hand and said, "That wasn't slow motion. That's as fast as Jay Bell can run."
That's funny. Well, back to LeBron James, he gets a lot of criticism today. And he did 2 dinners for us at Celebrity Fight Night. They brought over $100,000. And the one I remember the most, Mike, was we were at his favorite restaurant, Akron Chop and Steakhouse. And this dad bought this dinner for $100,000, got his son out of Brophy. Dinner's at 6:30. And so they're seated, and I'm out in the front by the driveway waiting for LeBron James to come in the car. And this was probably in his 4th, 5th season.
Now, this is in Cleveland, in Akron, Ohio?
Akron, Ohio, yeah. And so I'm waiting for LeBron, and he gets out of the car. He said, "Jimmy, I'm sick. I can't do this. You got to understand, I'm really sick." I said, "Hey, LeBron, if you could just 20, 30 minutes, just if you can come in, sit down, and just kind of go through the motion a little bit, shake hand, get a picture," because the guy paid a lot of money, took his son out of Brophy, and Okay, Jimmy. So LeBron goes in there, spends 2 hours. And then, are you ready for this? 2 days later in the newspaper, LeBron James was tested for swine flu, very serious flu. And that shows you the heart, the goodness that the guy has. He does a lot of good stuff for schools in Akron. And
see, you can't tell me those stories. Because we love to hate the Lakers. We love to hate LeBron because he's a Laker. Don't make me like him. Don't make me like him.
Okay.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
When you watch this, so I know we need to wrap this up, but let me ask you just one question about when you watch the celebrity stuff. Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal, the on-air rivalry, but it's like brothers kind of hassling each other. But when you see the genuine respect that they have for each other at some point.
Right.
Michael Jordan in the documentary The Last Dance, as he talks about respect for other people and the dream team and how they all got along, there's a level when you are at that elite level where you're so competitive that I would imagine you can only relate to people that are as competitive as you, right?
Right.
When this is me gonna name drop to Jimmy Walker. I grew up with Deion Sanders.
I love him.
So Deion and I were Pop Warner teammates.
Good.
Didn't know each other very well, but we were on the same Pop Warner football team together. And everybody knew when he was 12 years old that he had the ability to be a superstar. But nobody ever knows, are you going to have the work ethic to be a superstar? And he was one of the guys that at every level, he worked harder, was more talented, and could have, high school, probably even in college, really succeeded at a high level if he didn't work hard. But nobody worked harder than that guy with that talent.
Like Kobe.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. You mentioned the Lakers. Jerry Buss, when he had the Lakers, we were friends and team tennis partners, and one day he came to me and he said, "Jimmy," he says, "the Phoenix Playboy Club's for sale. Why don't you and I buy it?" He said, "That'll be a lot of fun." And I thought, we're all tempted. And I thought for 5 seconds, that's a heck of an idea. No. I said, "Jerry, I don't think Nancy would like that." And I led a Bible study. Jerry said, "No, you shouldn't do it." That's right. But you know what? I thanked him, But yeah, the Lakers, they didn't get Dan Hurley, and I'm kind of glad.
Yeah.
I'm not a Laker guy anymore, but I was when Jerry Buss was here. But I was always Jerry Colangelo and the Phoenix Suns.
And so I could talk to you for hours about this. Your impression for Hurley to turn down $20 million because it's 20 more than he's making in his current contract.
Mm-hmm.
I think that says a lot about what he wants to build where he is. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, but his dedication to the people he made a commitment to.
True.
What that's going to do for that team trying to chase a third national title. But if he's going to make that kind of a commitment to them, how much more committed will that team be to them?
Well, I think the loyalty's there, and certainly I think, to try to coach guys like LeBron. See, the coaches tell me this today. The players are making so much more money than the coaches that they don't want to listen to you. They don't. I mean, it's really it's a different game. You know, I mean, I asked Dick Van Arsdale, who was the big player in the Phoenix Suns years ago, what's the most you got played? And the average players that are not, some of them don't even belong in the league, are making over $5 million a year.
Yeah.
And we got 3 guys on the Suns making what, $50 million?
Yeah.
And we got swept in the first round. Sorry, Matt Ishby, I didn't mean to say
Yeah.
that. We'll get him next year.
I hope so.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, I want to say thank you because to the person, when I was asking about you to people, what they all said was, you're going to love him, that you are such a lovable person. And I will tell you that I rarely meet people that I respect so much immediately. I was nervous about interviewing you because we had never met.
That's funny.
And I wanted to be able to ask you questions to tell the story. You're such a great storyteller, and you are as kind as everybody said you were going to be. And so for everything you do here and around the world, thank you. You are an example to people like me, and an example of somebody I'd like to be like.
Well, you're very kind, even though you've overestimated me. But any good thing in me, it's right there. I give it to the Lord. So thank you. I've enjoyed the interview. Great questions.
Thanks.
Really, you're very, very good at what you do.
Jimmy Walker is why we do these things. If you know the events, you've heard of Fight Night, Celebrity Fight Night, and the other things, but now you know the man behind the mission. And thanks for watching.